Hello and welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Our guest today is Chaitra Vedullapalli. Thank you, Chaitra, for being here. She is the co-founder and CMO of Meylah, focused on helping customers to modernize their business with cloud solutions. She's also the co-founder of Women in Cloud, which is coming up. She sits on the board of several companies and drives global conversations with the UN and top corporations. The UN, wow. And I've been going through your bio, and we didn't talk about this before we went live, but you have a patent. I just want to kind of quick learn about that for a second. Can you tell us about that?
Thanks, Julie. First, thank you for having me today. I am really excited to have this coffee chat with you, especially in current climate. Having a good conversation is required. So thank you for getting me excited today to be here.
Yeah.
Now, you want to learn about the patent of all the things. Absolutely. So one of the patent that was created was I was at Oracle, and we were building web applications. Okay. And if you had to create applications, like if you have to create any page that one, let's say 20 years ago, so it's a long time, you had to hard code everything in every page. At that time, we didn't have an HTML that was automated, didn't have like an XML kind of capability. Mm-hmm. So we created a technology. So all the changes that we needed for the entire site in a database. So you would come and say, today, I like blue. Tomorrow, I want purple. I just had to change in the database, and the entire site would be transformed to be purple.
Oh, so my goodness. That's so cool.
Was the technology, and that did not exist. And now, even today, it does not exist. Like that patent has not been implemented in the digital transformation work. But I am a patent, and I was at Oracle, so they own the patent. So yeah.
That's so cool, just to put on your resume. And I thought, well, you took the moment to put that on your bio, so I want to talk about it. So that is so cool. And I would love, how long ago was that? And what do you think the holdup is in not implementing it yet?
I think it's, first of all, people have to feel the pain before you make the change, right? And I think the digital marketers feel the most pain because they have to keep the fresh, but you have to work with the technologists to implement something like that. Mm-hmm. The energy between a technologist and a marketer. It's a church and state kind of scenario. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, when that integration happens, that's when there will be need for these kind of innovations to come into the market. Mm-hmm. It is getting better, like you have a universal tags that you can create and you can universally apply to the site. However, when you are doing the website and an application and a mobile app and stuff, that particular integration has not happened. And there is no room for it. That's, I would say, is one day someone will come and say, I want to implement it, and start for it.
And it'll be there. It'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for just telling us about that. That's fantastic. And thank you also so much for your time today. You're a very, 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 very busy woman. And one of the reasons why you're so busy lately is because of Women in Cloud. And for those of you in the audience who don't know, Women in Cloud is a large scale digital summit, and it's happening at the end of this month. It's a 3-day event, I believe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the 27th through the 30th. And you are very instrumental in all of that. So what is Women in Cloud for the folks that in the audience that have not heard of it?
Sure, Julie. Women in Cloud is not just a summit. We are a community-led, an economic development organization, helping all the female tech founders to have access to $1 billion in economic opportunities in the enterprise market. And we do it by collaboration with the corporation, which is the Fortune 1000 companies, work with the legislators and the influencer and the buyers to create that economic access for female tech founders. The 3 pillars that we do is the community activation and community building. We want to build the largest business networking platform via the community. So anytime, if you're in Saskatchewan or you're in Timbuktu, you should be able to do business dealing in US or in UK. So we want to have that streamlined geo expansion and engagement, and the community is there for them to accelerate their business. The second piece that we have is the cloud accelerator. So
Mhm.
most of the enterprise now they are going and adopting a lot of the SaaS solutions. And
Mhm.
what we are seeing is in the digital transformation using SaaS solution, there's not a lot of SaaS solutions that are built by women. So one of the thing is putting the Microsoft Cloud Accelerator as an innovation and allowing the women to go through 6 months of immersive transformation. So by the time they come out, they are enterprise ready solution. They have full preparedness. They have to build a business to win $1 million in recurring revenue business.
Wow.
And that particular skilling and preparedness was not available, so we implemented that. So we have taken 56 companies through it over the last 2.5 years. And now we have created over $80 million in economic access for them in the enterprise market. So
Wow.
some of the wins we have done is in Cargill and Home Depot, Microsofts of the world. So there's a lot of wins that have happened through this work. The last one is the legislative action, which is the barriers that women have to get economic access to big opportunities. So it's a public sector or corporate opportunities. There is a lot of policies that are there that's stopping them.
Mhm.
For example, in the corporate side of the world, it's if a woman, if you have a deal, let's say a $10,000 deal, the insurance value, which is the insurance, is like a $5 million insurance for a
Okay.
$10,000 deal. There's
Okay.
no way women can actually, entrepreneurs can actually do because they're not funded in
Mhm.
that way to do implementation in the enterprise market. There's just a very simple a barrier, but there's a tons of other barriers that are there to really help them win the enterprise opportunity. And
Mhm.
same thing with the public sector. So we are really working with legislative action on
Yep.
that to remove the biases. And second one is as AI comes into the world and transforms the world, we need to have is ethics in
Yeah.
place and
Mhm.
making sure we have is a adopted I would say policies which make sure that a huge tribe of communities are not removed from the workforce because the AI will automate all the algorithms. So we
Mhm.
are looking into those kind of legislative work and make sure that these policies support democratic way of life and also equitable access for all.
Sure. And so what you've been talking about a lot lately is the economic access as well as the gender biases. Which one is a bigger obstacle, or is it about the same, or they're just different?
So before I hit that one,
Mhm.
you did ask me about a question which I didn't answer. So let me answer that, which is
I'm just
about
throwing them all
the.
at you.
So I will answer is, and then I'll answer this one because the second question is a loaded question. So
Mhm.
I will have at least a couple of minutes to ruminate that one in my mind. But when you talk about the Women in Cloud Summit, it is happening in 2 weeks. It is digital, 3 days, and it is really built with 70% networking. And this you will not hear in the online. It's always people talking to you, most like what we are streaming right now. You can never have a conversation, but we want everybody to have a conversation. The opening of the summit will be done by ex-Prime Minister of Canada, Right Honorable Kim Campbell. So she will open. The theme of the summit is called Collective Power. So there will be a strong fireside chat on collective power that we need to create for creating gender inclusion as well as economic access through collective power and collective action. So that will happen with Gabriella Schuster from Microsoft. She's a corporate VP, so that fireside chat will happen. The
Okay.
other things that we have done at the summit is to make sure all communities are represented. We have a Black Founder Circle, so Black founders, they can meet with all the corporate leaders and business decision makers and procurement buyers, so you can have that opportunity. Youth mentorship in the STEM area, we have incorporated that. We have women who want to get into the C-level position or in the board level position, you have a conversation. And one of the favorite things that people love is our executive mentorship. So we have over 120 execs across the community signed up to mentor our ecosystem. And the other one is rocking your pitch, making sure that you know if you're going for an interview or an investor pitch or a solution pitch or corporate pitch, we have an experience called Rock Your Pitch, and you get to learn and practice. So very experiential, and I want everybody to consider being there and experience what events can do in a virtual environment. Mm-hmm. Now, coming to your loaded question, is gender inclusion or economic access important? I think both are important. So let me talk about why. I think to think about the Maslow's law, the economic empowerment is very important to have your basic needs met. Once you have the basic needs, you can go into the luxury, and then you can go to your enlightenment, which is serving the population. Mm-hmm. If you do not create the economic access, what happens is you stop everything from the growth perspective. Now, whether you are a gender or a race, it doesn't matter. You have to make them go up the chain, because once you do not have your basic living met, you can be homeless very quickly. And with what you're seeing with COVID, more and more people are going down the Maslow's triangle than going up, which is the biggest area that we have to focus on. And there's not a whole lot of policies coming in, which I'm kind of like worried about. And we as a community are looking for really addressing that, so that the women who are in the technology sector, they're not sliding down, they're actually going up, and we have a community to support so they go up the chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so important. How are you, I mean, we didn't even talk about this, but are you seeing any parallels or similarities to the recession 10 years ago? I mean, I would imagine it's pretty parallel to what we experienced, 10, 15 years ago, an economic recession, depression, and, who leaves the workforce first?
I would say it is going to be worse than the 10 years ago. I think we should go into a place where our parents actually experienced the depression, mm-hmm. true mm-hmm. economic depression, because that is happening. And if you look at the climate, it is not very hopeful climate. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fear, and then also there's a lot of stress at home, right? Yeah. Because you can't go out. So you have stress health-wise, emotional, you have mm-hmm. spiritual. I think everything is ruptured. I think as a human, now you have to actually go inwards and start to make your mind much more stronger than ever before. You cannot depend on the gadgets. You have to depend on yourself, having the capability to say, you know what, I'm going to come into myself for my growth, for my preparation, learning, and then come out of it and making sure you have a proper goal for economic growth for yourself. Because all the things are available. Everything is available. If you have your commitment for yourself, preparation, you're doing it, and you have a right community, you will accelerate. That formula is there. You just have to commit.
Yeah, you keep bringing up community, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. Community means so much to so many people in so many different groups. And you mentioned community, building a community with Women in Cloud, not just the event, but as a company as well. And you're also talking about community when it comes to economic obstacles. And what do you typically recommend when you're building a community? Like, what do you recommend in specifically this when you're trying to overcome obstacles?
Sure, a great question, Ajali. This is a very, very good question. Nobody has asked me this one. So when I look at community actually is value creation. That means if you need something, you can get to that resource or a person at a accelerated pace, because in a community you can get warm introductions very quickly. Mm-hmm. If you want access to resources, you will get very quickly. So the speed of growth also happens because people trust you, and there's a trust factor in the community building. I came from India, so I grew up in most of my, I would say, upbringing was a lot of community around it, because my dad was in army, so we always moved as a tribe, like I was a unit. And that unit was such a strong unit. We always felt safe. We felt the belonging. And anytime we needed something, everyone was there to protect you. So that kind of one was amazing. Then I went to college and I missed that because I didn't have that unit. And I started realizing that that particular one has to be created. It doesn't happen. And there are some structures which comes with the community build, but rest doesn't. And at that time, I had to join the Rotary Club or build my own community. But that one was a lot of hard work to get there, right? So when you go to the tech, that particular community was there more from learning standpoint, or we had more from a mentoring standpoint.
Sure.
What the community did not exist from a value creation was an economic access. And everyone is looking for access to jobs, access to corporations that you want to do business with, or companies, or access to building solutions. Those were all high value creation that did not exist. So for me, when we were thinking about a community, was how fast a business or a woman can get through it in the speed they can get through. So if it take you a year, I want you to get it to in a month. So can we do that one? So that was what we focused on, is access creation and speed of access creation. And that's what a community would look like.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So I want to take what we've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes and kind of not shift it, but I want to kind of take that and move it into talking about strategy, which is what we're really going to be talking about. But I felt as though we needed some context before we started that. So with what we talked about with economic access, with building a community, with gender bias, how does that all come into play when you're building a digital strategy, specifically community? How do you specifically say, I'm going to integrate our community in our marketing plan? For me, it's more organic, isn't it?
It's not. It's actually a deliberate strategy. Okay. So let me talk through it. I will talk through a concept, which is a framework, which is how to drive a strategic value creation through creating access and also having an integrated marketing to make that happen. It's a very deliberate one. So what we have seen most of the companies do is they'll pick each of the channels, like marketing channels, but they are not connected, right? So the reason why they're not connected is they don't know the access points that they are creating. So if you understand the 3 pillars of creating strategic value, is the first one is access creation. You need to know what access you are creating for others to see the opportunities that will transform your lives. That's the first one. The transforming the lives is the key piece for access creation. Second one is enabling the engaging opportunities, is for people who are constantly trying to access and enjoy a transformed life. So you're constantly giving opportunity. Those are events, or there are some cool giveaways, or God knows, there's so many cool things, accelerators, and you can come up with a lot of opportunity. The third one is then you leverage the integrated marketing to help the customers easily take action so they can realize that potential. So those are your 3 pillars of it. So when we think about the access, like access for me is like that magical key between 2 people that you can open any door, anytime, you can break that glass, but it's really, and it's very invisible. And people think access as like login stuff. I'm like, no, it's people access.
Right.
When you can make that happen and your network can make that happen, that's where the community comes in, because the community creates that access for you.
Sure.
The second one is, so for example, right now, if you're in the COVID situation, you want to make COVID testing kit easily accessible, or a vaccine easily accessible. The company which does that particular access point, everybody will gravitate to them because they made that access, right? Second is providing, like an example is broadband access for the rural community. Whichever provider creates that broadband access for the rural community, all the rural communities will gravitate to them because they are providing access for them. So thinking about access has a very different lens from an economic perspective built to it. The second piece of that is what problem you're trying to solve. You need to know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a
Absolutely.
basic marketing one-on-one. What problem, but I'm asking is what is the access problem you're trying to solve? So once you have that, then articulate what's the strategic outcome you want to create when the access is created. Third, you create solutions. Those are your opportunities that unlock your access. And then you deliver the solution to create that value through access, right? And then you have the community becomes very integral part of the equation, and the events become very good. The social media makes sense, the billboard makes sense, everything makes sense. But at the heart of marketing is creating access.
And very much so. And with that, how much does representation have to do with making sure there's access for everybody? You know, if you have a group of folks who, you know, come from a similar background, they're not going to think of every single access point that is needed out there. So how much do you recommend that you have proper representation to find out what those access points are?
That's a great one. So representation for me is how fast you want to acquire the market. So if you're a marketeer and you're saying, okay, I have created this cool innovation. It creates access. Let's look at vaccine. Let's say the company has this vaccine kits, and they started with a rural community, and its particular race is getting it. But now they see it's like, wow, I can go to a second community with a different race, and I can create the same value. Now you have doubled the opportunity size through representation. And why wouldn't you do it? It's not about you, me versus a color. It's really around the market size and the growth you want to do. Most of the people get biased and then they stop themselves. But if you really look at doubling the growth, doubling the market size, or quadrupling the market size, that is when, if you look at all the social media tools, they represented everybody. That's why it's a billion people network. If they only said it's only for one race or one community, then you would, you only reach so much growth. So that for me is representation equals market reach or market growth.
Absolutely. And something you said before we went live, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but it was when you find that obstacle, it's a win for everyone. It's not just a win for that particular group, it's for everybody. So because you don't know everybody's situation. So it's really fascinating. And then from there, this is really weird off of that. But once you've built that community with the representation, all of that, and you've built your strategic marketing plan, how do you measure from that? Or that is, I'm pretending like I don't know anything about marketing, by the way. So I actually do know the answers. The audience. So, I know that obviously when you're building your plan, you have to know what you're measuring for because you have to know what the end goal is. What do you typically recommend? What points you should be measuring? There are some things that you automatically want to measure within your company, but what are some top things that you should measure no matter what?
Sure. I'll talk from my point of view, and everyone can, look at this as a new perspective. When you look at the marketing plans today, you're probably looking at the open rates, close rates, and how much it's actually influencing the deal. Some of them actually go and extend for, market reach. I also look at market reach. But what we have started doing is connecting all our marketing activities to the UN goals. And I say, okay, which UN goal are we driving? And we look at our community as people, as global citizen, no race, no color, nothing. And even gender, I look at everybody as a global citizen, and these are the people on the planet, they need to be served. Because if you want to take them up the Maslow's law, you need to serve them. So if that's the concept of serving them with creating equitable access, then you look at your marketing plan and say, does your OKR, which is your key results that you're working on, does it impact some of the key goals that you can drive on the UN goals? Like for Women in Cloud piece, it's goal number 5, which is gender inclusion. So there's an economic metric that is there. I look at that every quarter and see are we going in the right direction. The second one is the goal number 9, which is are we bringing enough strategic innovations in the market through our community I would say female entrepreneurs, and are they getting traction on it? And third is goal number 17 around global partnerships. Are we driving enough partnership to create the impact? By doing like very structure wise, now you're looking at the UN goals. So now you have a very good lens of impact. And then you also are going to pick the companies you want to work with who have a synergistic value system. So it makes it significant, I would say, growth for your company, because you're talking at a very strategic level, and your growth is also going to be at a strategic level. So as a marketer, one of the ask or a request, you can say, go look at the UN goals and see if your marketing plans actually impact any of the global goals. And if it does, how? That means you can start to articulate your value propositions really well in the community, and you'll start to see how fast your adoption of the campaigns look.
Oh, that's really good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. One thing that you had mentioned before, and again, it keeps going back to community because I'm never going to stop talking about it because it is so important, is customers. We talk about community, and what does that mean to you when an organization says, oh, our community? Like what should that mean to them? Not just their employees, not just their board. It's who's really included in a community when you're setting out those strategic marketing plans.
So there are multiple levels you need to look at, Julie. Like when I'm looking from a corporate perspective, and then I'll also talk from a small business perspective. The corporate perspective has 3 types of community channels or communities that you need to look at. One is your internal community that you are working with and you're adding value to them, so you're accelerating their plans. So that's your internal tribe or internal group of people that you're working with, and you're working with at a deeper level and making sure they become part of your advisors in what you do, and they are working with you to take whatever idea you have to the market. The second one is your channel, how you actually have your channel. Whenever you have a product, it has to go through a channel to reach the market. So you have to look at the channel ecosystem and the community around it and seeing how are you represented there and how are you serving them. The third one I look at is the customer ecosystem, and customers who are the buyers and who are the prospects. And all these 3 things are unique communities, but they all intersect through value creation. Everyone is connected through a value creation, and your strategic marketing campaign basically is a thread that goes and stitches everyone, and they get engaged in the journey. Every campaign will, when you think like you have 100% in your community size, you probably you will hit at 10%, some you are at 30%. But if you're consistent in your message and the value you're creating, you will see that over a year or 2 years, you have met the mark and your community is humming and buzzing, right?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
So now from a small business perspective, you have to look at a customer ecosystem and your channel ecosystem. And the same thing, your internal employee system. You need to get everybody engaged, and they are engaged in the mission of the work you're doing.
That's so right on. That's so right on. And that you kind of got me speechless there. But yeah, I will always continue to say that, yeah, community, you need to incorporate that into your integrated plan, and your customers are definitely a part of that because they're the ones that are buying from you. So if they're not going to buy from you because they don't believe in your product, and they see from the employees internally that they're not engaged, less likely you're going to have that word of mouth too. So
Exactly.
that's really fascinating. And one thing, I just wanted to point this out, and I love the fact that you kept pointing out Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're the first person that's like really pointed that out in marketing in a long time, because it's usually me doing it. And I think that's so important that we forget about it. And especially in this last year, everybody's facing so many issues, so much stress that sometimes we just need to go back to the basics and think, are people's needs being met first before we start bombarding them with sales and things like that. So I love that you brought that up, because that is something that isn't really mentioned very much. So I can't believe this, but we're at time.
Wow,
I could talk to you the rest of the day. Easy peasy, but I think we both have some plans today. But before we go, I just want to say, AMA Puget Sound, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We've been serving marketing professionals in the Seattle-Tacoma Puget Sound region since 1944. And I want to thank Fujisan Marketing, our annual sponsor, for the continued support. But honestly, seriously, thank you so much, Chaitra. I really, 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 really appreciate the fact that you squeezed us in with Women in Cloud happening in 2 weeks. I did put a link in the description below if you're interested in registering and attending. I really recommend that you do so. I didn't get to attend last year. This is the fourth one, correct? The fourth edition? Mm-hmm. I've heard so many great things about, especially last year. So I'm really excited for this year. And is there anything that you'd like to part with, any wisdom you'd like to part with, or anything that you'd like to make sure that we don't forget?
First is thank you for having me, Julie. This one was the fastest. I really enjoyed this session, and it was really, the time flew by and pretty exciting. And thank you for taking me out of my grind of doing the summit. It helped me to kind of relax and think about something cool stuff. As marketeers, one of the things we should really remember is that we have the ultimate power to serve the society, especially now. And we can do a significant impact by coming and joining our hands and creating a collective power to serve each other, because the marketeers are the ones who can actually bring the customer closer to the solution. So it is really imperative that we are the responders of serving the planet now. So thank you for doing what you do, Julie, and thank you for having me. And I would love to host you at the summit. So please come and see it. It will be remarkable. Really exciting.
I'm just looking at the speakers. Again, for those of you who have not looked at their site yet, seriously, look at the speakers. It's incredible. I personally know a few of them, so I'm really, really thrilled. So we do have all of your links in the description, as well as registration. And that's what your big focus is lately. So that's really cool. And if you enjoyed today's interview, please tap the like button and subscribe. Ding the little bell. I think I'm getting all of this. I'm new to YouTube. So again, Chaitra, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day and a great weekend, and good luck to Women in Cloud.
Thank you.